The city was a restless beast, its pulse a constant hum beneath the surface of my consciousness. I sat hunched over my laptop, the only light in my small apartment emanating from the screen, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Outside, the world was a cacophony of distant sirens and the occasional blare of a car horn. But inside, it was just me and the eerie glow of the digital world. It was one of those nights where sleep felt like a distant memory, elusive and taunting. My fingers moved almost of their own accord, navigating the labyrinthine depths of the internet. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just something to distract me from the gnawing sense of unease that had settled in my chest. That's when I found it, a dark website, its interface stark and foreboding. The title at the top of the page read Missing Persons, and beneath it, a grid of faces stared back at me, their eyes hollow and haunting. I felt a chill creep up my spine, a whisper of something sinister in the air. And then I saw it, my own face, nestled among the others. My heart skipped a beat, a cold dread settling in my stomach. I leaned closer, my breath fogging the screen as I scrutinized the image. It was me, unmistakably me, but the caption beneath it was what truly sent shivers down my spine. Serafina, top listing. I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the silence of my apartment. It had to be a prank, some twisted joke played by someone with too much time on their hands. But as I stared at the screen, the laughter died in my throat, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. I tried to shake it off, to dismiss the unease as paranoia, but the feeling lingered, a shadow that refused to be banished. I closed the laptop with a snap, the sound loud in the stillness, and leaned back in my chair, rubbing my eyes. The image of my face on that screen was burned into my mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness lurking just beneath the surface of the digital world. As I sat there, the city outside continued its restless dance, oblivious to the terror that had taken root in my heart. I felt a chill in the air, a whisper of something unseen brushing against my skin. The shadows seemed to grow longer, stretching out to envelop me in their embrace. I shook my head, trying to dispel the feeling, but it clung to me like a second skin. I glanced at the clock, the numbers glowing in the darkness, 3 a.m., the witching hour, when the veil between worlds was said to be thinnest. I shivered, pulling my cardigan tighter around me, and stood up, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet. I needed to clear my head, to escape the oppressive weight of the shadows that seemed to press in from all sides. I moved to the window, peering out at the city below. The streets were empty, the buildings looming like silent sentinels in the night. I felt a strange sense of isolation, as if I were the only person left in the world. As I turned away from the window, a sudden noise made me freeze. A soft ping from my laptop, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest, before slowly moving back to the desk. The screen had come to life, a single message displayed in stark black letters. Stop digging. I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin, my hands trembling as I reached for the laptop. The message was unsigned, the sender unknown, but the implication was clear. Someone was watching, someone who knew what I had seen. I slammed the laptop shut, my mind racing. The shadows seemed to close in around me, the darkness pressing down with a suffocating weight. I felt a surge of fear, a primal instinct to run, to escape the unseen eyes that seemed to follow my every move. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from the shadows that lurked in the corners of my mind. I was trapped, caught in a web of fear and uncertainty, with no way out. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across my apartment floor. I awoke with a start, the remnants of last night's terror clinging to me like a shroud. The memory of my face on that dark website was a persistent echo in my mind, a haunting reminder of the shadows lurking just beyond the veil of normalcy. I reached for my phone, intending to distract myself with the mundane comfort of social media, but a cold dread settled in as I realized something was wrong. Every account, every trace of my digital existence had vanished. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the rising panic in my mind. I scrambled to my laptop, fingers flying over the keys as I tried to log into my email, my social media, anything. But each attempt was met with the same chilling result, nothing. It was as if I had been erased, my presence wiped clean from the digital world. A soft chime broke the silence, a text message from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it, the words stark and foreboding. Stop digging. The message was a cold reminder of the unseen eyes watching my every move, a sinister force lurking in the shadows. I was jolted from my thoughts by the sudden ring of my phone. It was Kale, my cousin, his voice a frantic whisper on the other end. Serafina, you need to listen. I got this email. It says you're in danger. Real danger. His words sent a shiver down my spine, the fear in his voice a mirror of my own growing terror. What do you mean? What email? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It was anonymous, but it mentioned you by name. It said you were being watched, that you needed to be careful. The line crackled with static, a reminder of the distance between us, both physical and metaphorical. I felt a wave of isolation wash over me, the realization that I was truly alone in this nightmare. Kale, I don't know what's happening, but I need help. I need to figure out who's behind this, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. I'll do what I can, but be careful, okay? Whoever this is, they're serious. As the call ended, I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me, a suffocating presence that threatened to consume me. I needed answers, and there was only one person I could turn to: Nova. Nova's apartment was a sanctuary of technology, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. Screens flickered with lines of code, the hum of computers a constant backdrop to our conversation. She listened intently as I recounted the events of the past night, her expression growing more serious with each word. This isn't just some prank, Serafina. Whoever's doing this has resources, and they're not afraid to use them, Nova said, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she delved into the depths of the web. Minutes stretched into hours as Nova worked, the tension in the room palpable. Finally, she leaned back, her face pale in the glow of the monitors. I found something. There's an auction site, and you're listed. It's like a marketplace for people. Her words hit me like a physical blow, the air rushing from my lungs as the reality of the situation settled in. I was being sold, my life reduced to a commodity for the highest bidder. The thought was both terrifying and surreal, a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. Who would do this? Why? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Nova shook her head, her expression grim. I don't know, but we need to find out. And fast. As I left Nova's apartment, the city seemed to close in around me, the shadows lengthening with the setting sun. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on my back, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, leaving me to navigate a world where nothing was as it seemed. The city was a maze of concrete and steel, its towering structures casting long shadows that seemed to reach out and ensnare me. As I navigated the bustling streets, the weight of the previous night's revelations pressed heavily on my mind. The thought of being auctioned off like a piece of merchandise was a chilling reality I couldn't shake. Nova's words echoed in my ears, a constant reminder of the urgency of my situation. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. My thoughts drifted to Darius, my enigmatic ex-boyfriend. His fascination with the darker corners of the web had always unnerved me, but now it seemed more sinister than ever. I found myself standing outside a nondescript building, its facade blending seamlessly with the surrounding architecture. This was where Darius worked, a tech startup that thrived on innovation and secrecy. I hesitated, the weight of uncertainty holding me back. But I had to know if he was involved, if he was the puppet master pulling the strings. The lobby was sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my mind. I approached the receptionist, my heart pounding in my chest. "I'm here to see Darius," I said, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. She nodded, directing me to a waiting area. The minutes stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock amplifying my anxiety. Finally, Darius appeared, his presence as commanding as ever. His eyes met mine, a flicker of surprise crossing his features before he masked it with a charming smile. "Serafina, what a surprise," he said, his voice smooth and inviting. "What brings you here?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. "I need to talk to you about something important. It's about the dark web and an auction site." His expression remained unreadable, but I caught a flicker of something in his eyes, recognition, perhaps. He gestured for me to follow him, leading me to a private office. The room was dimly lit, the blinds drawn to keep out the prying eyes of the city. As the door closed behind us, the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with tension. I could feel the weight of his gaze on me, a silent challenge that dared me to speak. "Darius, I found something last night," I began, my voice steady despite the fear coiling in my stomach. "There's a site on the dark web, and I'm listed on it. They're auctioning people, and I need to know if you have anything to do with it." He leaned back in his chair, his expression inscrutable. "That's quite an accusation, Serafina. Why would you think I'm involved?" "Because you know the dark web better than anyone I know." and because I can't think of anyone else who would have the resources to pull something like this off. Silence stretched between us, the tension palpable. I watched him closely, searching for any sign of guilt or deception, but his face remained a mask, betraying nothing. Finally he spoke, his voice low and measured. "I won't deny that I have connections, but I assure you, I have nothing to do with this. If anything, I can help you find out who's behind it." His offer hung in the air, a lifeline in the midst of chaos. I wanted to believe him, to trust that he was on my side, but doubt lingered, a shadow that refused to be dispelled. "Why would you help me?" I asked, my voice tinged with suspicion. "Because despite everything, I care about you, Serafina. And because I don't want to see you get hurt." His words were sincere, but the darkness in his eyes told a different story. I nodded, accepting his offer for now, but resolved to keep my guard up. The line between ally and enemy was blurred, and I couldn't afford to let my guard down. As I left the building, the city seemed to close in around me, the shadows lengthening with the setting sun. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on my back, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, leaving me to navigate a world where nothing was as it seemed. The city's evening air was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that mirrored the turmoil within me. As I walked away from Darius's office, his words echoed in my mind, a haunting melody of sincerity and suspicion. Despite his assurances, doubt lingered like a shadow, whispering that his involvement ran deeper than he let on. I needed clarity, a way to untangle the web of deceit that ensnared me. My thoughts turned to Nova, my trusted ally in this digital nightmare. Her expertise in cybersecurity was my beacon in the darkness, guiding me through the labyrinthine depths of the web. I hoped she could shed light on Darius's true intentions. Nova's apartment was a sanctuary of technology, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The hum of computers filled the air, a comforting symphony of ones and zeros. She greeted me with a nod, her eyes focused on the screens that lined the walls. "I've been digging deeper," she said, her voice steady and reassuring. "There's more to this auction site than we initially thought." I leaned in, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. "What did you find?" She gestured to the screen, where lines of code danced like phantoms. "The site is heavily encrypted, but I managed to trace some of the transactions. They lead back to a series of shell companies, all linked to a single entity." "Who?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nova hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "It's not a who, but a what. A network of individuals operating under the radar, using the dark web to traffic people. They're organized, and they're dangerous." The revelation sent a chill down my spine, the reality of the situation settling over me like a shroud. I was up against something far larger and more insidious than I had imagined. The thought was both terrifying and galvanizing, a call to action that I couldn't ignore. "Do you think Darius is involved?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Nova's expression was unreadable, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It's hard to say. He has the skills and the connections, but there's no direct link." Yet, her words hung in the air, a reminder of the uncertainty that plagued every step of this journey. I felt a surge of frustration, a desperate need to uncover the truth and reclaim my life from the shadows. As I pondered my next move, a sudden noise shattered the silence, a soft ping from Nova's computer. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her features. "Someone's trying to breach my system," she said, her fingers flying over the keyboard in a flurry of motion. Panic surged through me, a visceral response to the unseen threat. I watched as Nova battled the intruder, her focus unwavering despite the danger. The room seemed to close in around us, the air thick with tension and the hum of technology. Finally, Nova leaned back, her face pale but triumphant. I managed to block them, but they were close. Too close. "Who was it?" I asked, my voice tinged with urgency. "I don't know, but they're good. Whoever they are, they don't want us digging any deeper." The warning was clear, a stark reminder of the stakes involved. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on me, a constant presence that threatened to consume me. But I couldn't back down, not now. Not when the truth was so close. As I left Nova's apartment, the city loomed around me, its shadows lengthening with the encroaching night. I felt the chill of fear in my bones, a reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. But beneath the fear was a flicker of determination, a resolve to see this through to the end. The line between ally and enemy was blurred, and the path ahead was fraught with peril. But I was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead, to confront the puppet master and reclaim my life from the clutches of a terrifying reality. The city was a labyrinth of shadows, each corner a potential hiding place for the unseen threats that seemed to close in around me. As I left Nova's apartment, the weight of the conspiracy pressed heavily on my shoulders. The revelation of a network trafficking people through the dark web was a chilling reality I couldn't ignore. I felt like prey in a world where predators lurked just out of... The streets were eerily quiet, the usual bustle of city life muted under the oppressive weight of my fear. I moved quickly, my senses heightened, every sound amplified in the stillness. The echo of my footsteps seemed to follow me, a constant reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. As I turned a corner, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadowy figure just out of reach. My heart leapt into my throat, adrenaline surging through my veins. I quickened my pace, the figure mirroring my movements, always just a step behind. The chase was on, a deadly game of cat and mouse through the city's darkened streets. I ducked into an alley, the narrow passageway offering a temporary refuge. My breath came in ragged gasps, the cold air burning my lungs. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear any sign of pursuit. The silence was deafening, a void filled with the pounding of my heart. Suddenly, a noise shattered the stillness, a soft scrape of footsteps on concrete. I tensed, every muscle coiled and ready to spring. The figure emerged from the shadows, their features obscured by the dim light. I caught a glimpse of their face, a fleeting impression that sent a chill down my spine. It was familiar, unsettlingly so, but I couldn't place it. Panic surged through me, a visceral response to the threat. I bolted, my feet pounding against the pavement as I fled deeper into the maze of alleys. The figure followed, relentless and unyielding, their presence a constant shadow at my back. I burst into a deserted street, the sudden openness both a relief and a new source of fear. I scanned my surroundings, searching for an escape route. My eyes landed on a library, its doors slightly ajar, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I sprinted towards it, the promise of sanctuary driving me forward. Inside, the library was a haven of silence, the air thick with the scent of old books and dust. I moved quickly, weaving between the towering shelves, the dim light casting long shadows that danced across the floor. I could hear the faint echo of footsteps behind me, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I ducked into a reading nook, the small space offering a momentary reprieve. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of the puzzle that had become my life. The network, the auction, the shadowy figure, it all pointed to a larger conspiracy, one that threatened to consume me. The footsteps grew louder, the figure drawing closer. I held my breath, willing myself to remain still, to become one with the shadows. The figure paused, their silhouette framed by the dim light filtering through the shelves. I could feel their gaze sweeping the room, searching for any sign of movement. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity as I waited for them to move on. Finally, they turned, their footsteps receding into the distance. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my body easing slightly. But the reprieve was temporary, a brief lull in the storm that raged around me. I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. The library, once a sanctuary, had become a trap, its walls closing in around me. I needed to keep moving, to stay one step ahead of the shadows that pursued me. The chase was far from over, and the path ahead was fraught with danger. As I slipped out of the library, the city loomed around me, its shadows lengthening with the encroaching night. I felt the chill of fear in my bones, a reminder of the peril that lay ahead. But beneath the fear was a flicker of determination, a resolve to see this through to the end. The chase was on, and I was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The city's nightscape was a tapestry of shadows and flickering lights, each corner a potential threat. As I emerged from the library, the weight of the chase still clung to me, a reminder of the relentless figure that had pursued me through the labyrinthine streets. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and determination, each step a calculated move in a game I was only beginning to understand. I needed answers, and Nova was my only hope. Her apartment was a fortress of technology, a place where the digital world could be bent to our will. I hurried through the streets, the chill of the night air biting at my skin, the city's usual cacophony muted under the oppressive weight of my thoughts. When I arrived, the door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. A sense of unease settled over me as I pushed it open, the familiar hum of computers greeting me. But something was off. The air was thick with tension, an undercurrent of something sinister lurking just beneath the surface. "Nova?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. The only response was the soft whir of the machines, their screens casting an eerie glow across the room. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the space for any sign of her. The usual clutter of wires and gadgets was undisturbed, but the atmosphere was charged with an unfamiliar energy. I moved deeper into the apartment, my footsteps silent on the carpeted floor. Then I saw her, seated at her desk, her back to me. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. As I approached, I noticed the unnatural stillness in her posture, the vacant look in her eyes as she stared at the screen. "Nova?" I repeated, reaching out to touch her shoulder. She didn't respond, her gaze fixed and unseeing. A chill ran down my spine, the realization dawning on me with horrifying clarity. She had been compromised, her mind ensnared by the very forces we were fighting against. Panic surged through me, a visceral response to the betrayal. I backed away, my mind racing with possibilities. How had they gotten to her? And more importantly, what did it mean for me? The room seemed to close in around me, the walls pressing in with a suffocating weight. I needed to get out, to regroup and figure out my next move. But as I turned to leave, a soft sound stopped me in my tracks, a whisper, barely audible but unmistakably real. Serafina, Nova's voice, a ghostly echo of its former self, sent shivers down my spine. I turned back, my heart pounding in my chest. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of recognition breaking through the vacant stare. "They're watching, always watching," she murmured, her voice a fragile thread in the silence. I nodded, understanding the warning hidden in her words. The network was vast, its reach extending into every corner of my life. I was alone, isolated in a world where trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. The city was a sprawling beast of concrete and steel, its heart beating with a rhythm that matched my own frantic pulse. As I stepped out into the night, the betrayal at Nova's apartment still fresh in my mind, I felt the weight of the conspiracy pressing down on me. The network's tendrils reached into every aspect of my life, leaving me isolated and vulnerable. I moved through the streets with purpose, my senses heightened, every shadow a potential threat. The air was thick with the scent of rain, the sky a dark canvas painted with the promise of a storm. I needed to find a way to expose the truth, to bring the network's machinations into the light. My thoughts turned to Darius, the enigmatic figure whose involvement in this nightmare was still shrouded in mystery. Despite his assurances, doubt lingered, a shadow that refused to be dispelled. I needed to confront him, to uncover the truth behind his role in this twisted game. I made my way to his office, the building looming like a monolith against the night sky. The lobby was deserted, the usual bustle of activity replaced by an eerie silence. I slipped inside, my footsteps echoing in the empty space, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Darius's office was dimly lit, the blinds drawn to keep out the prying eyes of the city. He was seated at his desk, his expression unreadable as I entered. The air was charged with tension, a silent challenge hanging between us. "Serafina," he said, his voice smooth and inviting, yet tinged with an undercurrent of something darker. "I wasn't expecting you." I met his gaze, my resolve hardening. "I need answers, Darius. I need to know what's really going on." He leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving mine. "I told you I'm not involved, but I can help you find out who is." His offer hung in the air, a lifeline in the midst of chaos. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his involvement than he was letting on. The network was vast, its reach extending into every corner of my life, and I couldn't afford to trust blindly. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "Because despite everything, I care about you, Serafina. And because I don't want to see you get hurt." His words were sincere, but the darkness in his eyes told a different story. I nodded, accepting his offer for now, but resolved to keep my guard up. The line between ally and enemy was blurred, and I couldn't afford to let my guard down. As I left the building, the city seemed to close in around me, the shadows lengthening with the encroaching night. I felt the chill of fear in my bones, a reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. But beneath the fear was a flicker of determination, a resolve to see this through to the end. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but I was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The network's grip was tightening, but I was determined to break free, to reclaim my life from the clutches of a terrifying reality. The final stand was upon me, and I was ready to fight.